And so the solution to that is part of this framework, which we talked about developing twins for highly accurate versions of your target audience. And now we're going to talk about regimens, which are really developing actions within the business to make sure that we stay focused on the buyer.
Welcome to the Buyer-Centric OS. Buyer-Centric OS, a system for revolutionary customer experience. With your hosts, Andy Helko and Tony Zayas. This show helps you turn guesswork into growth by putting your buyer at the center of everything.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode, and we're going to continue to go deeper on looking at actual steps to implement the buyer-centric operating system into your business. So, Andy, you said that mindsets fade and cultures drift, but why aren't those enough to keep a company buyer-centric, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think every day we're pulled in a lot of directions, right? And every organization has red tape and things that they need to go through, deadlines, all of that. And so it's easy to drift from our buyers, which we've talked about in past episodes. And it happens over time. We don't overnight say we don't care about customers. We just move away from them as, you know, we focus on our deadlines or our goals or our specific KPIs. We kind of forget about thinking about the buyer. And so the solution to that is part of this framework, which we talked about developing twins for highly accurate versions of your target audience. And now we're going to talk about regimens, which are really developing actions within the business to make sure that we stay focused on the buyer.
Right. And when you talk about regimens, in the book, you make them sound like more than just best practices. So what would you say is the big difference?
Yeah, I mean, they're really the muscle building, right? They're actions that you install into the business. You have to really make sure that they meet certain criteria. This is not just saying like, oh, let's create a regimen and do this. For me, to create a really good regimen, we have to follow along some different factors. The way I typically look at it is a regimen should, one, be pretty small. I like it to be manageable so that it's easy to execute. What we don't want is a regimen where we say, oh, we're going to, change our entire customer service. What we want it to be is something like, well, every time that somebody reaches out to us via chat, we're going to respond with a personalized follow-up, right? Something like that, small and simple. It's got to be repeatable. It shows up every time it happens. Again, it's not something that's like a one-off for one single customer or one single thing that happens every once in a while in the business. It's, every time a customer reaches out to us, every time we see this action, every time we have this type of call, it's got to be something that, every time it happens, it's got some frequency. It should be really role specific. So again, what we want to do with a regimen is not say it's for the entire company or department. We want to say, okay, well, our head of customer service or our, content marketing manager. These regimens should be things that they can do, and they're building the muscle with customers or clients or buyers. It should be integrated. So I really like to create systems that are hard to bypass in a way. They're part of the process. They're a step so that, as an example, I talked about that chat. We want something personalized. Well, we should build a process that every time a customer chats with us, it uses AI, goes out to our CRM and gives us a couple of factors that we could mention to the customer to know, so they know that we understand them, right? And so it's built into the process. It uses some sort of system to grab information and then reminds that role-specific person what they should do. And then really the ultimate one, buyer focused, a regimen has to be something that is improving experience, personalizing for potential customers, is really focused on our buyer or customer.
So I like kind of the pieces here because like the small, repeatable, even role specific and integrated, it makes it feel manageable, doable, like it's built in, something that isn't, a huge change we're trying to implement, steering completely away from the way things were done before. It's kind of micro improvements, it feels like. And then it shifts the focus towards the buyer. But I do like that. I'll ask a question about the role specific. So does this mean that regimens have to be defined like across the board for all the various roles?
Well, I think over time, that's what you're really trying to do. We've talked about the buyer-centric maturity model, and even the fact that we want to measure maturity by department. And so we may look at, the place that we need the greatest impact or improvement is in marketing. And then, we start to build those regimens in, and then we can move to other areas of business. I think one of the big things is creating a constant cadence of creating new regimens within the business, and even coming back and reviewing current ones to see how they can be improved. So I don't think it's something that organizations should think like overnight. And again, no great fix is going to happen overnight. That's what we've been talking about here the whole time, is that we want to shift from philosophies where you have a poster on the wall that says, think like a customer, to actual things that you install in your business. And we know that if we're going to install them in the business, it's not going to be something that just happens easily and quickly.
Right. So if those are kind of the pieces of the puzzle, what are the next steps to install these?
Yeah, well, I think the way that we typically look at it, and I have a little exercise that we go through to help identify these. For me, it's first that maturity model, understanding where in the organization, and then who and what, so what's a role and a KPI that we think is at risk within the organization. And we could talk through an example that I have in the book as we do this. So, a great one would be, hey, we've determined that in sales, we really have less maturity of being buyer-centric. And so we say who and what, and we look at it and we say, we're really struggling in our first meeting with customers, and we're not really moving enough to the next stage. And so that's a sales rep that's in a meeting with a customer. We spot the drift. Go ahead, Tony.
No, just following along.
Yeah, so we spot the drift, the bias or the misalignment. So what we now want to do is say, okay, let's examine why we're maybe having that challenge. And one of the things could be, in our example, that we've identified that we're not really connecting with the customer enough on their pains and challenges in that first meeting. And so what we want to do is define a new buyer outcome next. And what we want to say is, okay, in that first meeting, we really want our sales reps to align to the buyer pains and challenges, because we believe that that can move them more to the next stage. Then we want to define an action and a format, how to do this. And so we sit and we think like, okay, well, what is a way that we can do something that is small and integrated, but helps achieve this goal? And so the example we use is coming up with a tool that our sales reps must use on the first call that helps them take existing challenges and pains we know our customers potentially have and work with the potential customer to rank them and say, oh, this is your biggest pain. This is less of a pain. Okay, let's talk about why. And that tool actually captures that information and saves it for future for that salesperson. And so now we've created something that's small. It's just an integrated tool. It's connected so that they have to go through it in that first meeting. And it achieves the goal that we talked about, which is connecting more with our buyers' pains and challenges to help move them forward. And then really it's the last stage is a blueprint test. It's just making sure that it does reach all those things that we talked about. Is it buyer-centric? Okay, yes, because it's focused on them and their pains. Is it small? It's simple. It's something that's just a tool that, in a meeting we can use. It's not a huge change. Is it integrated? Yes, it's a tool. It's in the meeting. It's something that we developed that's part of the process. We're really coming back and making sure that it meets that criteria. And if it does, we've now created a regimen that has helped our sales team stay customer focused and move people further in the sales process, because we centered around the buyer. We made it small. We made it integrated. We made it repeatable. And it's something now that delivers big.
So there is a process to kind of test the regimen just to make sure that it's in alignment with goals and KPIs, and it's hitting all of the points, the small, repeatable, et cetera, which is great. And then for the sake of then implementing it, once you've confirmed, what does that look like for the implementation side?
Yeah, I mean, this is really about putting it in. Obviously, one of the biggest pieces is if you make it small, if you make it integrated, it's really easy to implement it. Right. But one of the biggest things that anytime we come up with an initiative like this, we want to map out, okay, what are the actions that these folks are going to take? Do we make sure that it matches with what a regimen should be? Can we spot any gaps or challenges in using this? Like, here's why it might not work. And then obviously assign someone to stay on top of it, like make sure that it's being used. And then obviously revisit it quarterly just to make sure that it really continues to match with the KPIs that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And so this is a process that we offer to go in and work with our clients to implement. So if it feels like a heavy lift or kind of overwhelming, we'd love to hear from you if you're interested in this. But this is a great description, Andy, of the process, of regimens. I think it's all about establishing those habits that move us closer to becoming buyer-centric and in that frame of reference when we're kind of in all of the different areas of the business.
Yeah, I think the biggest shift at the end of the day is what the book is all about, is creating an operating system around your customers and buyers instead of just philosophies and ideas. And so when you do an operating system, it is about steps and pieces and these things. And so I don't want people to feel overwhelmed, like this sounds like a lot. It's more about, as simple as let's identify areas where being more buyer-centric can be really impactful to our organization, and then find simple regimens that can be game-changing to improve that and obviously scale the business.
I would say the biggest thing to get started is just to be intentional with it. Because to your point, it can't just be a rally cry. It's got to be something intentional, put into motion, and then you get your steps in place and all that. Good stuff. So if you guys want to check it out, the Buyer-Centric Operating System, available on Amazon. Check it out. If you have not, we'll continue to go deeper into the steps and would love to hear from you if you guys have any questions or considering implementing this in your business. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Buyer-Centric OS. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and grab your copy of the Buyer-Centric Operating System by Andy Halko, available now on Amazon. For more tools and insights, visit andyhalko.com.